market is changing. Can your business keep up? Join me, Justin Lane, and a host of enterprise sales talent as we unravel the world of sales incentives and technology to help you become a more agile and effective leader. Learn how best-in-class organizations use data to identify and apply the right incentives at the right time to drive organizations towards success, whatever the market throws at you. Quit the guesswork and unlock the full potential in your sales team. Welcome to the Sales Compensation Show. It is my pleasure and honor to welcome to today's show, Bettina Kaemmerer. I have not had the pleasure of meeting Bettina in person, though I've been a follower of her on LinkedIn and always enjoy when she posts up about sales compensation. Recently, she had really outstanding post about sales compensation communication, and I thought to myself, we need to have her on the Sales Compensation Show. Bettina, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
And for the folks who are listening that aren't familiar with you, can you tell us a little bit about your background in sales compensation and what you're up to today?
Yes, sure. So I have a 20 plus year experience in sales compensation. I worked for a couple of companies like Fiserv, First Data, Microsoft, HP, Computer Associates. So running my own business, BComp, since April this year. And now I'm advising companies and individuals on sales compensation. I'm originally from Germany, but I grew up in Nigeria, and now I'm in the UK or in London since 17 years. So I'm a sporty person. In my private life, I do like running, yoga, Pilates, anything, body pump, and so on. And my friends say that I'm a good cook. So I'm always excited if someone wants to exchange recipes with me.
Very nice. Now, recently, or maybe not so recently, you quit a job full-time at Fiserv to begin BComp and become self-employed. What were some of your drivers behind that decision?
I had a personal life-changing event. So my father died in February this year. And I thought I know it's now or never really the time to do something for me, run my own business, do what I'm passionate about, do what I love, step out of the corporate world and really run my own business. My parents were always, they were always running their own business. So I just basically follow in their footsteps.
Yeah. So a bit of an inspiration there.
Yes, clearly.
And then how was that transition went?
Oh, that was like a huge learning curve. Yeah. So I attended a lot of courses about what do you need to consider when you run your own business and where to get business from. I talked with a lot of people in the industry, in other industries. And luckily I had my first customer right away, which was a really self-confident booster. I thought yes, it is a niche market that I'm in, but there is a market for it. So I'm in it to last.
Now, so you've been in sales compensation longer than I have. I think when I looked at your profile, maybe back in 1995 is when you took your first sales compensation job. Talk to me about what's changed in sales comp from 1995 to 2022, almost 2023.
Yeah. So in 1995, I worked in finance, but I was looking also after sales compensation. So what has changed? A lot of things have changed. So back in the days, there was no technology really available. People were just paying sales people without the idea even of driving behavior with sales compensation. Sales compensation was just another bucket in your P&L basically, but had nothing to do with what do we want to get out of the salespeople? Why are we paying them? Yeah. So there were more focus on sales methodologies and these kind of things, but not at all of what do I really want to get out of the sales compensation? What's my strategy?
Yeah. I feel like it's been through maybe 3 evolutions or waves. And I think when I started, maybe 99, 2000 timeframe, people thought about sales compensation as a math problem that we had to get right. And then I think it shifted into this idea of behavior. How do we motivate reps? How do we retain and recruit reps into the organization? And then I think more recently, people have started to think about the idea of prospects and customers. Like, what is that experience like on their side? And what sort of buying experience are we delivering? through the sales compensation plan. Does that mirror kind of your journey?
Absolutely. So nowadays, when I advise customers, I'd say you don't only need to pay your sales folks on what they're doing, but also on how they're doing it. You want them to be polite to the customers. You want a good customer experience. You want them to learn about products, new products, and all of it. Yeah. So you want them to be engaged. You want them to take your KPIs into consideration. Sure, everyone gets a base salary for a reason, but just paying sales compensation for growing the business is nowadays not enough anymore. You really need to have a how element in there somewhere. And that can be through promotions, through non-monetary stuff. Yeah. So there are many options to build this in.
Do you do any work in Europe, on the continent?
Wherever companies,
Wherever it is?
I go anywhere. Yeah. So yeah, no limitations there.
What came to mind is thinking about the idea of a regulatory environment, how different countries perceive or think about sales compensation. And I think that people in the United States or North America, we have this centric view of our issues and problems. And I think as you get outside the United States, there's certainly things around pay mix, as an example, maybe not as aggressive. We don't have the idea of works councils here in the States. And so anything else come to mind that maybe is different that you want to educate or inform our US listeners about how sales comp might differ? And
by all means, we have multiple languages, we have multiple currencies, we have multiple local laws that override anything. Yeah. So when your CEO wants something, still the local law is more. Yeah. So we have GDPR, we have some other regulations that you need to consider when you select a tool or when you exchange data. Italian employees don't want to see their comp statement in US dollar. They don't want to see their quota in US dollar. Same goes for German people. I have experience with so Poland, for example, their English language knowledge is normally not the best. Yeah. So you need to translate a lot. Yeah. So if you have clawback clauses, for example, clawback in Poland, not happening. Yeah. So if you design something, you need to take these kind of things into consideration. And no one has the knowledge of the regulations and the rules in every country. But I'm fortunate enough, I know a lot of people, so I can always reach out to people in that particular country who have that knowledge that are willing to share that with me.
Yeah, sales compensation to me has always been interesting because it is this intersection of multiple disciplines. The finance team is involved from modeling costing, and they're concerned, from the accrual function and audit trail. I think sales always wants to motivate their reps and maybe to a large degree pay people more. And then HR certainly concerned with regulatory environment and the legal aspect. And I think that's an interesting point that you bring up, that in the States, in some states, the sales compensation plan is a legal document between the employer and the employee. It must be signed, electronically or a wet signature. It's interesting to think about that idea that what you said, no one person knows all the laws around sales compensation, but the idea of having a partner network to be able to figure that thing out.
Yeah. You know what my favorite thing about sales compensation is, why I always loved it? You always have a front row seat. So when you are dealing with sales compensation, you are the person that is involved with HR, with finance, with leadership, with legal, with marketing, product development. You are in the seat where you get the know-it-all position, basically. In sales compensation, I need to know what new products do we bring on the market next year? Do we want to go to new markets? What's finance view? What is our budget limitations? HR, are we going to a next round of redundancies and so on? In sales compensation, when you do the plan design, you really have a front row seat. And I always found this extremely exciting. And now that I run my own business, I have a sneak peek into so many different industries, and I don't know. Yeah. So it's fantastic. It's absolutely mind-blowing, exciting.
Yeah. From the folks that you've talked to this year in your new organization, have you got any prevailing trends or anything that you see is coming up that maybe you didn't expect?
I do get more questions now about technology. So it's not
Okay.
that they want to buy immediately, but they know that technology is out there and they have it on their back burner basically. Yeah. So they know that this is something that they want to look into maybe next year or the year after when they are growing a bit more.
Yeah. So I've been involved on the technology side as well, pretty
Yeah.
much my whole career. And I've certainly seen people invest in the administration of sales comp. So the crediting, the calculation, the reporting, the areas where I thought it would take off more, in support of the design, territory optimization, and then something to help out with quotas, kind of this evolution of what we used to call ICM into this world of SVM. What have you seen about, are companies starting to think about, let's just pick territories as an example, because I always think of sales comp, territories, and quotas as a three-legged stool. You can't really think of one in isolation without the other two, or you've got a problem at the end. Are you hearing companies thinking about doing something around territories?
They all do, yeah. So account setting, territory setting, proper go-to-market strategy. That is what they all have in mind, yeah. So they do want to get this right, have the right salesperson for the right set of accounts for the right territory. Yeah. So my actual client, they have country salespeople, and then they have European sales folks on top of that who deals with the large accounts. They know that they have a product that works anywhere, yeah, without any amendments, really, yeah. So it is. They all look into proper matching sales with the right set of accounts with the right territory, and to make that work and make this whole again also.
I think one of the things that's came up in some of the other interviews that I've done for this season of the podcast is this concept of fairness in sales compensation. And on the other end of that conversation, the idea that sales comp is inherently unfair. You're rewarding the top performers at a disproportionate rate to the bottom performers, right? To try to, you have accelerators and bonuses and all kinds of things for the top of the sales force. Maybe there's a president's club or a trip, at the end of the year. Territories, I think the same thing. People want them to be equitable in some fashion. But you mentioned this idea of matching up the right opportunities with the right seller. How do companies think about these or balance out these two ideas between we want things to be fair, but at the same time, there's some, because it's pay per performance and performance is differentiated, it's not going to be fair always.
It cannot be fair all the time, yeah, but that's all right also from my point of view. If you have a salesperson that do not perform, you look into all the details. Yeah, is he going through a rough time privately, and so on and so on. Yeah, so, and have I matched him to the right set of accounts or the right territory? Is he in the right position in my organization? He might be a fabulous salesperson, but he do feel intimidated by working with CEOs. Yeah, so he might be in a different position. He would be better. Yeah, so is he a hunter or is he a farmer? Yeah, so you want to match the skill set of your salesperson also to what you assign him to later. And if there is a skill that is missing, train the person. Yeah, don't let go of a good salesperson. Invest in sales. Yeah, so there are techniques that people can learn to improve their selling skills.
Yeah. One of my first jobs out of university was a sales job, inside sales on the phone. And every Monday at lunchtime in the lunchroom, there would be that stacked ranking report of who had sold the most, top to bottom. And you would go in and try to find, where you stood on it. And it took me a while in my career to understand that, because at that time we hadn't really thought about the idea of balanced or optimized territories in any way, that it was partially a report about who were the best sales reps, and it was partially a report about who had the best set of accounts.
That's not true. I would not say that they naturally have the best set of accounts. A good salesperson and a not so good salesperson. Yeah, it's like if you go to Formula One. Yeah, so put a Ayrton Senna in a bad car, he will still would still have smashed it. Yeah, so yeah, it is also about being a good salesperson. Yeah, so yeah, and I love the stack ranking personally. It's not allowed in every country, by the way, in Europe, but it really triggers the salesperson's competitiveness. So every salesperson wants to see their name on the list. Yeah. So
Yeah.
if you are a good salesperson, it's just no option that your name is not on the list. Yeah. So if you really want to get them going, you have something like that. Yeah. So, and salespeople, they like that. Yeah. So good salesperson want to be in a competition with others. They don't want to go at home at 5 and think like, we're good today or not. I don't know.
Yeah, there's some objective measuring stick of
Yes.
were you successful or
Yes.
not. I love the Formula One analogy. I've many times described sales compensation as the racing fuel for a Formula One car. You still have to have a great driver and a car and a team and all the other things to win, but without it, it's
Mm.
pretty difficult to do well.
Yeah, definitely.
Here's another question. So you've been involved in sales compensation for a while. So I'm always interested because I think that the longer folks have been around sales compensation, the more we think about things the same. How often do you think sales compensation plans should be reviewed?
I would say at least quarterly.
Quarterly.
So
Okay.
yes, so you want to also look for soft measures. Yeah, so you don't want to look only for hard measures like my revenue or my market share. Yeah, so you would also want to look at cancellations. You want to look into the backlog. Have I got enough in my pipeline? Are my processes working? How is my forecast accuracy and these kind of things? So just going by revenue, how much is my revenue versus the compensation I paid? That's one measure, but it's not really meaningful if you don't look at all the other things. Yeah. So there are many things that you can consider, and you really should set them up in the beginning of the year. So what do I think is the measure for having a successful sales plan, a successful salesperson, and a success for my company? So these are the three things that you want to look for.
No, I really like this idea of a quarterly review. When I asked the question, I was very much expecting the once a year answer because that's how I was, taught in the consulting world 20 years ago, that you designed it and it was almost a fire and forget strategy. And then at the end of the year, once again, you took this backwards look as to what had happened and then you made changes. But, the opinion or thought process was that you had to let it run for some period of time to see if it was really changing anything. And now I think with the accessibility and the amount of data that we have around, like you said, both hard measures, soft measures, that we can monitor it on a more frequent basis and see if things are working the way we wanted them to and maybe make changes if needed.
Yes, that's the point. If you measure during the year and you see this product sale is going downhill, why is it? Yeah, so you have the chance to implement measures that go against the trend, and you can see like, oh, what do I need to push this product? Yeah, so is there something wrong with my product? Is what's going on? So if you measure or if you check more regularly and do a bit more deeper dive, you can work against the trend and be more successful.
Yeah. So at top of the show, I mentioned you recently had a post on sales compensation communication. I loved it. It had nice 1, 2, 3, 4, a checklist of steps for people to follow. And to me, this is one of the areas where people do a ton of work on the design project. And then at the very end, they fall down and fail to communicate it to the field force in an effective manner. What do you think what are some of the best tips you could share for the folks listening today?
Yeah, there are a couple of things. So number one, get everyone engaged. Yeah. So you should never do it on your own. Yeah. So you need to reach out to HR. You need to reach out to finance. You need to know and understand the company strategies. You should always have a rollout plan. Yeah. So who is communicating what to when to whom? Yeah. So that's very important because communication, everyone in the company should know what your company strategy is, not only the executive level. Yeah, so everyone in the company would like to support your strategy, but if they don't know it, how can they support it? And with the sales plan, what I usually did when I had my educational rounds with the sales folks, I would start always with, this is what we want from you, and this is why we want it from you. Yeah. So, I mean, there's some elements that you can't reveal, like if you were planning a huge merger or these kind of things, yeah, that has impact on your share price. But other than that, you can communicate anything. And I get a lot of feedback from the sales folks like, oh, that's the first time we ever understood a sales plan. And then they are more successful because then they know what is expected from them. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also start my education rounds usually with, do you want to drive a Porsche or do you want to drive a Golf? And then they normally look at me very confused, like because of course they want to drive a Porsche, yeah. So in my both very good cars, yeah. But yeah, and then I explain to them what they need to do to drive.
Here's the steps to get there, what you need to do.
These are the steps to get there, yeah.
Nice. That's a good way of
make them hungry. Yeah? So I like hungry salespeople.
Now, you mentioned earlier like the different stakeholders. I think executives are certainly as stakeholders. What do they not understand about sales compensation, or what do they get wrong when it comes to the design?
Oh, they get so many things wrong. So number one is they just like trust everyone else in the organization that have done enough or maybe not. Yeah. So they never check. Yeah. So I've worked with some executives that when it comes to like, you need to sign this off for our plan design for the next year. Yeah, that's all right. I'm sure it will be all right. Yeah. So if the company is not really suffering, the attention that they pay to sales compensation is normally not the best. Yeah. So, and at the end of the day, they are the ones that have their head stuck out. Yeah. So big times. If the company is going downhill, then that has to do normally with the companies not performing. Yeah. So how do you make the company perform? You get your salespeople do a cracking job. Yeah. So everyone in the company needs to try to deliver above and beyond. How do you do this with salespeople? This is the only people really where you can drive a monthly, quarterly behavior to get there. So executives should really pay attention and ask the right question when it comes to plan design. First question, obviously, question everything. Yeah. So why did you change the plan? Yeah. What happened? Yeah. So why is the old plan design not working anymore? Yeah. So, and then you expect them to give you an answer like strategy, economy, these kind of things. Yeah. So the sales executive or the executive should have already in mind what he wants to hear as an answer, but he should still very much poke everyone in the room to give him that answer. Yeah. So what has changed? What are the measures that can we measure what we have designed? Yeah. So what is your communication plan? When are we rolling the plans out? What is this costing me? Yeah. So is it affordable? That makes everyone normally very nervous. Yeah. So the dollar question. Yeah. So and then obviously what is the proof that the plan design worked and did not work? And what have you got as a plan B if it comes to H2 and we're seeing that your plan design is not working?
One of the trends I've seen in sales, and I think one trend was accelerated with the pandemic, but the idea of inside sales versus field sales. I think on the other end, I've seen more and more companies start to break out the role of, I'll call it a relationship manager, customer success type manager, certainly in the high tech software world. So all of a sudden we have a very segmented chain of sales, lots of people interfacing with customers and kind of hands-offs and transitions. Couple questions here. So there's more hands in the pie and maybe not any more money to pay out. So kind of first question is, who should be eligible for sales comp? And then the second question would be, how do you make sure that not only is there strategic alignment with the company's goals, but there's strategic alignment across the customer journey throughout the company from rep to rep?
Yeah, that is a layered question. So one of the trends that I see is that companies look more now into team targets. So there are still, I mean, a brutal hunter will always be a lonely wolf hunting on his own, yeah. But like SDRs and customer, so CSRs and so on, companies look into having them on a team target. So that is one of the trends I see at the moment where companies think like, if they are a team target, then
that will motivate people to work together.
Yes. And you also pick up the one that is at the moment not that well performing because of whatever reason. Yeah. So everyone has personal downfalls. Yeah. So, and not everyone is always at the peak of his deliverable. Yeah. So that's just human nature. But if you work in a team, the other thing that they are aiming for with that team thing is, after the pandemic, there is no company spirit, there is no real team spirit anymore. When you have people forced basically to work together, that is creating that we are going back to the team spirit. We are going back to having fun at work with our colleagues.
That's an interesting thought. I hadn't really thought about this idea of building sales culture through team incentives.
That's one of the trends I'm seeing. Yeah. So, and then the other thing, obviously need to. So yeah, who should be earning sales compensation? Only the one that is carrying the quota for it. Yeah. So if you double quota, so if everyone has a quota for the same deal, fine, pay them. Yeah. So because has a certain cost impact. But if the employee does not carry the quota for that, well, there's always exceptions and so on and so on. Yeah. So if, let's say, you know someone in the company that I want to have as a customer and you bring it to me, I will still pay you like a bonus or something. Yeah. But other than that, and for that kind of activity, I always recommend you need to sort everything before your employees start the work. So you need to set the expectations right. So if I don't want to pay you for your hard work that you put in, you should know before that, because otherwise you will be very, very disappointed with why have you not been paid. Yeah. So, but if I have my teams structured and set up correctly, and you know exactly with whom you should be collaborating and what is your task. Yeah. So then you would not waste your time and the company's time on stuff that I will not want to compensate you on.
Slightly,
But
yeah,
of course, yeah. So in my opinion, only the people that can influence sales should be on sales plan. Yeah. So I don't want marketing on it. I don't want anyone in customer support. Yeah. So I just want people that really actively close a deal.
Yeah, touch the deal, impact the revenue to some degree, because I always think of sales comp as it's a revenue share of some sort, whether you're paying on straight revenue or gross profit. You're saying that they influence revenue. I'm going to share some percentage of that with the team that did that.
Yeah, there is an argument for, so some companies are set up that they have a salesperson and they have a pre-sales person attached to the salesperson. So they always go out as a double team, basically, never alone, always together. And some companies do pay the pre-sales person on top, like a little amount, but some companies don't. That's really depending on the setup and the impact the pre-sales person has on the sell.
So one of the things when I first came into the workforce, pretty much dominated by the baby boomer generation. My generation, I don't know if we ever had the majority of a sales force from Generation X. We certainly have seen now the millennials, probably the predominant majority of sellers on any given team that you'll talk to, and Gen Z, coming in on the heels of that. Any advice for companies with this idea of a multi-generational workforce? How do they need to think about younger people versus older people? Are they motivated the same in sales, or do you think there's a difference?
There is a huge difference. So the way they are motivated. So my generation, we wanted to have a house. We also have a car. Yeah. And these kind of things. The Generation Z and also like even the millenniums, they are more interested in traveling experience. Yeah. So they are driven by, if you want to motivate them, send them somewhere, but don't give them stuff. Yeah. So they all want to earn money. Yeah. So that's the common thing. But if you want to really have the recognition above the monetary thing, they also work much more with the public recognition. Yeah. So they do want to have their name out there, and they do want to hear like, hey, you did really well. This is now an internal communication where we give you praise and you're the best rock star in the world. Yeah. So that's also the same for everyone. But when it comes to like President's Club and so on and so on. So back in the days when the people came back from President's Club, oh, I got my Mont Blanc fountain pen. Yeah. So yeah, you can spare this. Yeah. So Gen Z really don't care for Mont Blanc fountain pen.
I wouldn't mind one, but I think what you're saying is that incentives still matter. People want money. That's probably one of the reasons why they went into sales as a career. But there's more of a holistic approach to reward and recognition across the generations.
They do also different things with the money they earn. Yeah. So
Okay.
my generation would put down a mortgage. They spend it on a trip to Bali or South America.
So your earlier example of the Porsche versus the Golf, maybe it's a trip to Bali versus a trip to the Dover Cliffs.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine. I will use that.
How do you think sales compensation is going to change in the next 10 years? Any insight into the future?
Oh, I'm pretty sure that we will see. I mean, at the moment, there was technology companies popping up left, right, and center. Yeah. So from France, from Holland, from India, from like everywhere. I see so many companies, yeah, coming up at the moment. Yeah. So and so the big companies like exactly Verisent and so on, they are having competition out there. And some of this agile young companies, they will give them a run for the money, that's for sure. And they also fill a market that is more tailored to the small and medium-sized business, because the general idea is that if you have like around 50 salespeople, that's the time when you should latest look into investing into technology and move away from the Excel that you had before, because there is a huge benefit of using technology
One of
if you
these
want
tools.
to pay on
Do you
time.
think that number of 50 has come down as, like you said, some of these newer, more agile companies come into the space? Or is that pretty much the point where up until then, spreadsheets, a napkin may still work, but over 50, you have to start thinking about applying some technology to the problem, or maybe you're just not going to get it right?
Yeah, absolutely. If you let's say you grow up to 200 and then you want to move into technology, that's a much bigger effort to then move into technology than if you're just 50. It's just making everyone's life more easy, and also the admin work, because if you do it on Excel sheets, you need 5 people to manage it. If you move to technology early, you're fine with 1.
2 questions I like to ask everybody that comes on the show, and to wrap it up. And the first one is, who in the world of sales compensation would you most like to take to lunch?
That would be the fabulous David Kichelli from Alexander Group. I can speak with him for hours and days about sales compensation.
I was fortunate enough to work with Dave at the Alexander Group, and I agree. Very entertaining speaker, and
Yes.
the depth and wealth of knowledge that he has is pretty amazing.
Yes, I met him a couple of times, and I was always amazed.
Last question: is there a book, whether it's specific to sales compensation, sales management, but is there a book that you would recommend to people to go read?
There is a book that is not brand new on the market. The book is named Game the Plan. And the subtitle is Every Sales Rep's Dream, Every CFO's Nightmare.
And the author is Christopher Cabrera.
Yes, he is. Yeah. So I always take this hand, or not always, but I very often take this hand and just browse through it. And there's always something I find amusing, insightful, teachable. Great book. And that boring, Travel Guide to Lake Como.
Okay. Fantastic. All right. Bettina, I want to say once again, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I loved the conversation. I hope you enjoyed it as well.
I did. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for inviting me.
All right. We'll put some links to BCom around the show. And hopefully people, if you need help with sales compensation plan design, please go take a look at what she has to offer.
Yes. Find me on LinkedIn.
All right. And with that, I'll tell the audience, stay smart out there, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, and have a lovely day.